I step into the grand ballroom of the Evergreen Resort and immediately wish I hadn't come. Chandeliers drip crystal light across marble floors, and wealth whispers through the room in hushed tones of respect. Michael's hand finds the small of my back, steadying me with the gentle pressure of his palm. "Breathe," he whispers, his surgeon's eyes assessing me with clinical precision. "We earned our place here." Leo tugs at his bow tie, his 6-year-old patience already wearing thin. "Mom, this thing is trying to choke me." I kneel, adjusting the offending fabric with a smile. "Just for a little while, buddy. Remember our deal, good behavior now, swimming pool after." The reception crowd parts briefly, and my heart stops. A familiar profile catches my eye, the slight tilt of her head, the way she leans forward when she laughs. I haven't seen that gesture in 11 years, but my body remembers it instantly. The bride turns, champagne glass raised in a toast, and our eyes lock across the room. "Grace." "My sister." The champagne flute trembles slightly in my hand, the only outward sign of the earthquake happening inside me. I hadn't recognized the name Daniel Brooks in the invitation. I hadn't made the connection. I'd assumed Grace was still using our family name Collins. Her gasp cuts through the ambient conversation like a blade. Heads turn. The music continues, but a bubble of silence forms around us, stretching across the divide. Behind her, Mother's face drains of color, then flushes crimson. Father moves protectively toward Grace, his broad shoulders creating a barrier between us just as he's done all our lives. "What are you doing here?" Mother hisses, loud enough that nearby guests turn with curious eyes. The familiar shame rises in my throat. For a heartbeat, I'm 21 again, standing in the rain with a suitcase, homeless and alone. Michael steps forward, his voice firm but measured. "My wife is a guest. She's the CEO of MedNova. We were personally invited by the groom." The name MedNova ripples through the cluster of medical professionals nearby. I hear whispers, see recognition dawn in their eyes. "CEO?" A woman in a burgundy dress turns to her companion. "That's Amber Collins?" The rain soaks through my thin jacket as Father's words echo in my memory. "If you're too ungrateful to help at the clinic, don't come back." The slam of our front door punctuates his sentence, final as a judge's gavel. Now, I stand straight-backed in Valentino, the rain a distant memory. The scared girl is gone. In her place stands a woman who built something from nothing, who refused to disappear. Dr. Daniel Brooks approaches, confusion creasing his brow. His gaze darts between Grace's frozen face and my composed one. "You know the CEO of MedNova?" He directs this question to my parents, then turns to me with growing interest. "We've been trying to partner with them for months. Your patient monitoring system is revolutionizing post-surgical care." Grace attempts a smile, but it falters at the edges. Mother and Father exchange glances loaded with panic. The whispers among the wedding guests grow louder, more insistent. I could make a scene. I could expose 11 years of lies. I could tell Daniel how they told everyone I'd failed out of college, how they'd painted me as irresponsible while pocketing my tuition money for Grace's benefit. The power is finally mine. Instead, I simply say, "Hello, Grace. Congratulations." The simplicity lands like a thunderclap. Grace flinches as if I'd shouted. Michael's hand returns to my back, a silent question. "Stay or go?" Leo looks up at me, innocent to the undercurrents swirling around us. "Mom, is that lady in the white dress your friend?" Daniel's gaze sharpens. He looks between Grace and me, his new bride and the stranger who clearly isn't a stranger. "Grace." His voice carries confusion and the first notes of suspicion. "I thought you said your sister was." His voice trails off, the unfinished sentence hanging between us. Grace's eyes dart frantically between her new husband and her parents. For the first time in my life, I watch her struggle for words. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately regretted it? The smart move would be to grab my family and quietly slip away. Let Grace have her perfect day. Let sleeping dogs lie. But sometimes regret is just fear wearing a mask. And I stopped being afraid a long time ago. And this is my wife, Grace, Daniel beams, his arm sliding around her waist. Stanford graduate and the brilliant mind managing her family's medical practice back in Vermont. I stand 10 feet away, my champagne untouched, watching my sister nod demurely as she's introduced to a cluster of doctors. Her pearl earrings catch the light when she tilts her head, a gesture I recognize from childhood or tell when she's about to stretch the truth. The Collins Clinic has been serving our community for 30 years, she says, voice pitched perfectly between pride and humility. We specialize in family medicine with some geriatric care. Michael touches my elbow, drawing my attention to the conversation unfolding beside us. A silver-haired woman in an elegant pantsuit studies my name badge. Mednova? Her eyes widen. You're Amber Collins? Your presentation at last month's medical summit was brilliant. The patient monitoring system you've developed is changing post-surgical recovery protocols across 3 states now. 4, actually, I smile. We just finalized implementation with Northwestern's hospital network. Across the room, Grace fumbles through a response about platelet therapy trends. The doctor questioning her exchanges a subtle glance with his colleague. I thought Stanford's medical program had shifted away from that approach 3 years ago, he says, brow furrowed. Grace's laugh floats a pitch too high. Well, you know how these academic debates go. Some professors hold on to traditional methodologies longer than others. Daniel's expression shifts almost imperceptibly, tightening around the eyes, a slight withdrawal of his arm from her waist. He's noticing the discrepancy. Amber. The voice behind me belongs to my father. 11 years older, but unmistakable the same commanding tone that once sent me scurrying to answer phones at the clinic after school while Grace practiced piano. You need to leave, he says, positioning himself between me and the rest of the room. You're ruining Grace's day. Michael stiffens beside me, but I place a steadying hand on his arm. I was invited by Daniel, I reply, my voice low but firm. Perhaps you should explain why that upsets you. Father's face reddens. The expensive suit he wears can't disguise the man beneath a small-town doctor whose authority stops at the borders of his own practice. Don't play innocent. You showing up like this flaunting your whatever company you claim to run. Mednova is hardly a claim, Dennis. Michael steps forward, every inch the Harvard-trained surgeon. The medical technology conference in Boston last month featured your daughter as the keynote speaker. Her monitoring systems are in 27 hospitals nationwide. A nearby guest turns at this, clearly recognizing the company name. Across the room, my mother hovers near Grace, desperately trying to steer Daniel's colleagues away from my direction, her hands fluttering like panicked birds. Too late. The connections are already forming throughout the room, medical professionals recognizing my name, making associations. Leo tugs at my hand. Mom, can I have some cake now? You promised. In a minute, sweetheart. Leo looks past me, eyes fixed on Grace. Is that lady your sister? Does she go to Stanford like you did? Dennis's face drains of color. Before he can respond, Leo continues innocently. You showed me your old college pictures. The red buildings were pretty. Grace has drifted closer. Daniel beside her. Her face freezes at Leo's words. Stanford? Daniel says, looking between us. You went to Stanford too, Amber? Class of 2014, I answer simply. Daniel's colleague, distinguished cardiologist based on his conversation, turns to Daniel. You didn't mention your wife's sister was Amber Collins. Her work on predictive algorithms for post-surgical complications is revolutionary. Northwestern Medical has reduced readmission rates by 22% using her systems. The weight of 11 years of lies settles visibly on Grace's shoulders. She reaches for Daniel's arm, but he steps slightly away, his attention now fully on the professional conversation happening around me. Rain drums against my dorm window as I stare at the bank statement, the numbers not computing. My college fund depleted, transferred to an account I don't recognize. The same day, a package arrives from Grace of photos of her spring break in Cancun, the trip I couldn't understand how our family could afford. I shake off the memory, focusing on the present. Daniel has pulled Grace aside. their heated whispers visible from across the ballroom. His face reflects growing confusion, then disbelief, then something harder as she clutches at his sleeve. "You told me you graduated from Stanford," he says, voice rising just enough to carry. "I went there. I've never heard your name mentioned by any of the faculty." Grace's response comes frantically. "It was mostly remote learning, a special program they had for. Stanford Medicine doesn't offer remote degrees." Daniel's voice has gone cold. Never has. Color drains from Grace's face as she realizes her carefully constructed life is beginning to collapse. Her eyes dart around the room, landing on mine with desperation. Daniel steps back from her, straightens his tie, and turns. With deliberate steps, he walks across the ballroom away from Grace, directly toward me. Behind him, Grace's pleading eyes follow, a drowning woman watching her last lifeline walk away. Daniel guides me away from the crowd with a gentle hand on my elbow. His fingers tremble slightly against my skin, the only indication that the poised doctor is rattled. "Let's find somewhere quieter," he says, his voice steady, but his eyes darting back to where Grace stands with my parents, their heads bent together in urgent conversation. We settle in a small alcove at the edge of the ballroom. 2 plush chairs, a small table between us. The muted lighting casts shadows across his face, highlighting the sharp angles of confusion etched there. "I apologize for the awkwardness," he begins, straightening his bow tie. His words trail off, uncertain how to frame the chasm of questions between us. "You didn't know Grace had a sister." I finish for him, keeping my voice neutral. Daniel's eyes widen. "She mentioned a sister once, but said you dropped out of college after a semester, that you couldn't handle the pressure and disappeared." The old wound throbs, but I don't flinch. Years of boardroom negotiations have taught me to keep my face composed even when bleeding internally. "I graduated summa cum laude," I say simply, "while working 3 jobs. 3 jobs? His brow furrows. Mornings at a coffee shop, evenings at the hospital reception desk, weekends at a call center. The memories flood back the bone. Deep exhaustion, falling asleep over textbooks, the relentless push forward. I put myself through school part-time. No family support. Each word lands like a stone between us, ripples spreading outward. Daniel's expression shifts from confusion to calculation, the surgeon's analytical mind reassessing everything he thought he knew. "Stanford?" he asks, naming his alma mater. I shake my head. "Community college first, then State University. I couldn't afford Stanford after I discovered my college fund had been." I pause, choosing my words carefully. "Reallocated. To Grace's education," he concludes, the pieces clicking into place. The ballroom around us blurs as memories surface sleeping on Sarah's lumpy couch for 6 months, showering at the YWCA when Jamie's boyfriend kicked me out, eating ramen for weeks straight to save for textbooks. The humiliation of asking professors for extensions because I couldn't stay awake after triple shifts. "The hospital where I worked reception," I continue. "That's where I met Michael. He was a resident then. I remember that night clearly hunched over healthcare administration textbooks during my dinner break, exhaustion pulling at my eyelids. Michael stopping at my desk, curious about the complex diagrams I'd sketched in the margins. "You understand Kellerman's patient flow theory?" he'd asked, surprised. "It's flawed," I'd replied without looking up. "The bottleneck isn't intake, it's documentation requirements between departments." He'd pulled up a chair, and we'd talked until my break ended. The next day, he brought coffee and questions about my ideas for streamlining patient monitoring. Within months, we were developing the prototype that would become MedNova's cornerstone product. Daniel leans forward. "And MedNova? Grace mentioned you worked some office job." I can't help the small smile that touches my lips. "We started in our apartment 7 years ago. Last quarter's revenue was just under $400 million. Across the room, I spot my parents flanking Grace like sentinels. Dennis paces small circles, his face flushed with anger, while Margaret clutches Grace's arm, her knuckles white with tension. They cast frantic glances our way, whispering urgently. They're going to try to separate us soon, I say calmly. Daniel follows my gaze. They appear concerned. Michael approaches us, phone discreetly positioned at his side. I recognize his strategy documenting behavior while appearing casual. A protective measure we've learned after years of navigating hostile business environments. Everything all right here? He asks, his surgeon's eyes performing a quick assessment of my well-being. Just catching up, I reply, gratitude warming my chest. The man standing beside me, steady, brilliant, can seize me as I am, not as my family's convenient narrative. On cue, Margaret bustles toward us, her voice pitched to Carrie. Daniel, there's someone from Boston General dying to meet you. Her eyes slide past me as if I'm invisible. A familiar sensation. Daniel stands his ground. In a moment, Margaret, Amber and I are having an important conversation. My mother's smile stiffens. Always the attention seeker, our Amber. She turns to the nearest cluster of guests. She's always been jealous of her sister's accomplishments. The statement hangs in the air like smoke, acrid and choking. Several guests shift uncomfortably, eyes darting between us. I remain seated, back straight, face composed. Michael's hand rests on my shoulder, a silent anchor. When the bathroom door swings closed behind me 20 minutes later, I'm not surprised to find Grace already inside, reapplying mascara with trembling hands. Our eyes meet in the mirror. Why are you doing this to me? She demands, voice breaking on the final word. I wash my hands slowly, deliberately. Doing what, exactly? Ruining my wedding, making Daniel question everything. Tears streak her carefully applied makeup. I'm not doing anything, I reply softly. I'm simply existing. Grace slams her mascara wand onto the marble counter. You were supposed to stay gone. For the first time, I see the fear behind her anger, the terror of a house of cards beginning to collapse. They told everyone you were a dropout, she continues, words tumbling out like a confession. That you couldn't handle responsibility, that you were… And yet here I am, I interrupt, handling quite a lot. When I emerge from the bathroom, my composure is intact. I return to Michael's side, to the warmth of his hand finding mine. Grace follows minutes later, makeup freshly applied, but something essential has shattered behind her eyes. I notice it immediately, the subtle shift in the room. Wedding guests gradually drifting toward us, drawn by genuine curiosity. A neurosurgeon discussing patient monitoring innovations with Michael. A hospital administrator slipping me her card. Your post-operative monitoring system reduced our complication rates by 30%, she tells me. We'd love to explore expanding its implementation. Daniel stands at my elbow, attentive to the conversation, asking insightful questions about MedNova's technology. His new bride hovers at the periphery, unmoored. Father approaches, shoulders squared for battle. Daniel, he interrupts loudly, this is Grace's wedding. Let's focus on her accomplishments. The silence that follows fills the room like water, drowning everything else. All eyes flick between Daniel and Dennis, then to Grace, whose smile stretches thin across her face. No one speaks. No one needs to. Sometimes silence holds more truth than any words could express. I hand my half-empty champagne flute to a passing server and check my watch. We've stayed long enough. Michael catches my eye across the room where he's extricating himself from a conversation with an enthusiastic orthopedic surgeon. His slight nod confirms we're on the same wavelength, as always. Are we leaving now? Leo tugs at my hand, hope brightening his eyes. Swimming pool time? Yes, buddy, just one more thing. I pull a small cream-colored envelope from my clutch. Inside rests a certificate for MedNova stock, not life-changing money, but enough to make a statement. This is who I am now, not the desperate girl they threw away. Michael joins us, his hand finding the small of my back. Ready? Almost. I scan the room for Daniel. The poor man deserves some courtesy on his wedding day, even if his in-laws don't. We find him near the bar, watching Grace with an expression I recognize too well, the first hints of doubt creeping into what should be certainty. My sister works the room with practiced charm, but now I notice how she flinches slightly when medical terms enter the conversation, how quickly she redirects. We're heading out, I tell Daniel, offering the envelope. Congratulations again. He takes it with genuine warmth. Thank you for coming, especially considering. His eyes drift toward my parents, who hover nearby like vultures circling wounded prey. I appreciate the invitation. I mean it. Closing this chapter matters more than I realized. Daniel leans closer, voice dropping. I'd like to visit Mednova sometime. Professionally. Our eyes meet, understanding passing between us without words. He knows. Maybe not everything, but my assistant will set it up. I offer my business card, aware of Grace watching us, her smile cracking at the edges like old porcelain. Mother glides toward us, social armor firmly in place. Amber was always so driven, she tells a nearby guest with calculated lightness. Of course, she had advantages we couldn't provide Grace. The blatant reversal of truth would have wounded me once. Now it's almost comical. What advantages were those, Mrs. Collins? Michael asks innocently. The 3 jobs while putting herself through night school, or sleeping on friends' couches after you took her tuition money? Mother's face hardens, but a cluster of Daniel's colleagues has drifted within earshot. She retreats a step, recalculating. Leo looks up at me, confusion clouding his face. Aren't those people your family, Mom? The question silences everyone within hearing distance. Simple, direct, unintentionally devastating. I kneel to his level. They're relatives, buddy. Family is different. Father chooses this moment to approach, puffing up his chest like he did when I was young and easily intimidated. You can't just waltz back into our lives and... I'm not interested in walking back into anything. My voice cuts through his bluster with quiet finality. I'm not here to expose you or reconcile with you. I built my own life, which is exactly what you forced me to do when you showed me the door. The image flashes unbidden. Rain soaking through my jacket, the weight of my suitcase, the terrifying freedom of having nothing left to lose. Behind me, Leo fidgets with his bow tie again. Michael rests his hand on our son's shoulder, steadying him the way he steadied me all those years ago when I thought I'd drown. Thank you, I tell my parents, causing them to blink in confusion. Thank you for not giving me a chance. You made me build my own. Mother's face contorts between rage and social preservation. For once, she finds no words. I take Leo's hand. Michael falls into step beside us as we make our exit unhurried, dignified, complete. No dramatic declarations, no tearful scenes, just the quiet power of walking away whole. Whispers follow us like gentle rain, but unlike that night 11 years ago, they don't touch me. I've built an umbrella of accomplishment that shields me from their storms. In the lobby, Leo breaks free and spins with childish delight. Pool time. 10 minutes to change, and I'll meet you there, Michael tells him, tousling his hair. As we cross toward the elevators, I catch our reflection in the polished marble Walla family of 3, solid and connected. Behind us, through the ballroom doors, I glimpse Daniel watching our departure, then turning back to his new bride with new questions in his eyes. Some weddings mark beginnings. This one marks an ending, the final release of expectations I never needed to fulfill, approval I no longer seek, and pain I refuse to carry forward. Leo punches the elevator button with enthusiastic determination. Up we go. Yes, up we go indeed. Sunlight angles through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office, casting long shadows across the polished concrete floors. 1 month has passed since Grace's wedding, but the memory still lurks in corners of my mind like a half-forgotten dream. I scan the partnership proposal from Boston Memorial, a contract worth 8 figures sprawled across my desk. Mednova's patient monitoring system reduced post-surgical complications by 37% in their trial run. Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't play favorites. My assistant Meredith's voice crackles through the intercom. Dr. Daniel Brooks is here to see you. My pen stills against paper. I hadn't spoken to my sister's husband since that night. Sent him in. Daniel enters like a man carrying invisible weight. His shoulders curl forward, suit jacket wrinkled at the elbows. Dark circles shadow his eyes. Thank you for seeing me without an appointment. He stands awkwardly until I gesture toward the chair opposite my desk. Coffee? I offer. He shakes his head. I can't stay long. I wait. Experience has taught me the power of silence. I've consulted with a lawyer about annulment possibilities. The words tumble out like stones. Everything Grace told me was fabricated. She never attended Stanford. She never managed your parents' clinic. She's the receptionist. I absorbed this without surprise. The lies were always there, waiting for someone to notice. I'm sorry to hear that, I say, and mean it. Your parents made her the face of their practice while they... His voice trails off as he runs a hand through disheveled hair. The billing practices at their clinic, they've been charging Medicare for procedures never performed, using outdated codes deliberately. Grace helped them do it. The revelation lands like a slap, not because it's shocking, but because it confirms suspicions I buried years ago. I didn't mean to drag you back into this, Daniel continues. But when I started investigating Grace's background, I found patterns, discrepancies. Your name kept appearing in old clinic records, then vanishing completely 11 years ago. The skyline beyond my window shimmers in summer heat. I built this view from nothing, while they built their lives on fabrications. They used my college fund for Grace, I say simply. When I confronted them, they told me I wasn't Stanford material anyway. Daniel winces. The irony is, I never wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to improve medical systems, make them more efficient, more accurate. You've done that, Daniel says, glancing around my office. MedNova is transforming post-surgical care across the country. A silence stretches between us, comfortable in its honesty. The clinic is being investigated, he finally says. I submitted anonymous information to the proper authorities after discovering the extent of the fraud. They've been doing this for nearly 15 years. 15 years. Beginning right around the time I left for college. My phone buzzes with a text from Michael. Picking up Leo early, zoo day. Join us? A warmth spreads through my chest. This is my real family now. What will you do? I ask Daniel. He straightens his shoulders. File for annulment, cooperate with investigators, start over. He hesitates. I came to apologize for my unwitting role in reconnecting you with your past. And to ask, do you plan to get involved in the investigation? The question hangs between us, heavy with implication. I could destroy them completely. One phone call from the CEO of MedNova to the Medicare fraud investigators would accelerate everything. No, I say, finally. I built my life separate from theirs. I intend to keep it that way. Relief washes across his face. Thank you for seeing me. After Daniel leaves, I stand at my window, watching traffic flow 40 stories below. My phone vibrates with a voicemail notification. Grace's number, the 3rd this week. Michael calls as I'm gathering my things to meet them at the zoo. You sound tired, he says. Daniel Brooks came to see me. The family clinic is under investigation for Medicare fraud. A pause. Are you okay? Yes. The answer surprises me with its truth. Are you going to get involved? I watch a red-tailed hawk circle the skyscrapers, riding thermals with effortless grace. I was thinking about what you said last week, about how my success is already their greatest punishment. I stand by that, Michael says, but it's your choice. My computer chimes with an incoming email. An attorney representing the Medicare Fraud Investigation Division, requesting information about my time at Collins Family Practice. Attached are documents requiring my testimony. They want me to testify, I tell Michael. What will you do? I consider the question. Part of me wants to delete the email, refuse the request. Let whatever happens to them happen without my fingerprints anywhere near it. Another part remembers patients who trusted them. Elderly men and women whose Medicare benefits were stolen. I'll forward them copies of the clinic's original records from when I worked there, I decide. Nothing more, nothing less, just the facts. I'm proud of you, Michael says. My phone buzzes again. Another voicemail from Grace. Her third today. The first one begged for money. The second threatened to tell Leo the truth about his mother. I don't need to hear the third. I press delete without listening, the small action surprisingly final. Leo wants to see the new tiger cubs, Michael says, his voice a welcome anchor to my real life. Tell him I'm on my way. I gather my bag, pausing at the door to look back at my office. The Boston Memorial contract waits on my desk, another hospital ready to implement the system I built from nothing but determination and long nights. I close the door behind me, leaving Grace's voicemail in digital oblivion where it belongs. Some debts can never be repaid. Some wounds never fully heal. But I've learned that moving forward doesn't require forgiveness. Sometimes it just requires letting go. The purple coneflowers bend towards sunlight. I pinch back another spent bloom, adding it to the collection in my palm. 6 months have passed since the wedding. 6 months of breathing easier, like finally stepping out of shoes that never quite fit. Leo races between the raised beds, his Batman cape fluttering behind him. Mom, can I water the tomatoes? Start with the peppers, I tell him, pointing to the drooping leaves. They're thirsty today. He grabs his small watering can, tongue poking out the corner of his mouth as he concentrates on not spilling. The mid-May sun warms my shoulders through my t-shirt, no designer labels here, just comfort in my own space. Michael appears at the patio door, 3 glasses of lemonade balanced on a tray. Reinforcements, he calls, descending the steps into our modest garden. His surgeon's hands, the same ones that perform delicate heart valve replacements now, pass lemonade to our son with exaggerated ceremony. Thank you, good sir. Leo responds with a wobbly bow that nearly spills his drink. Michael's eyes meet mine over Leo's head. The unspoken conversation passes between us. This is what matters. This garden, this boy, this life we built from nothing but determination and truth. The Davis Hospital Board approved the patient monitoring system. Michael says casually, though we both know what this means. The 5th major hospital chain to adopt MedNova's technology this year alone. Thousands more patients who will recover safely because of what we created. That's number 5, Leo announces proudly, counting on his fingers. Mom's helping all the sick people get better faster. I ruffle his hair, amazed at how he absorbs everything. That's the idea, buddy. The doorbell chimes from inside. Michael raises an eyebrow. Expecting something? FedEx, probably. Those component samples from Switzerland. But when Michael returns, his expression has shifted. He holds a certified letter, the return address visible even from where I stand. Grace Collins, Brooks. My stomach tightens, the familiar knot I thought I'd finally untangled. I'll be in my office. The envelope sits on my desk for 17 minutes, while I finish reviewing quarterly projections. Michael leans against the doorframe, silent support. When I finally slit it open, a single sheet of cream-colored stationery slides out, covered in Grace's careful handwriting. Amber, the clinic closed last month. Not because of anything you did, because of everything Mom and Dad did. The investigation found billing irregularities going back 15 years. Daniel left me. He said he couldn't build a life with someone he couldn't trust. He was right. I'm not writing to ask for money. I know better now. I'm writing because I need to tell you that you were never the problem. I was raised to believe your intelligence threatened mine. Your independence undermined my security. I believed them when they said cutting you off necessary. I was wrong, they were wrong, and I'm sorry. Grace. Michael doesn't ask what it says. He waits until I fold the letter and place it back in its envelope. What will you do? He asks. Nothing dramatic, I answer, turning to my computer. I open a document, type for several minutes, then print a single page. I slide it into a MedNova envelope with the letter I've written. 2 weeks later, I stand at the edge of the American Medical Technology Conference in Chicago, watching my team demonstrate our latest innovations to a crowd of healthcare professionals. The red Nova booth draws attention, our reputation preceding us now. A flash of movement catches my eye, someone in pale blue scrubs near the education pavilion. Grace, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, listens intently to a speaker discussing entry-level medical coding certification. Our eyes meet across the crowded exhibition hall. No gasps this time, no drama, just quiet recognition. She holds the MedNova internship application I sent her, clutched like a lifeline. I offer a small nod, not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. She returns it, eyes bright with something that might be determination. We don't approach each other. Some relationships are completed, not continued. That evening, I finalized the paperwork for the Collins first-generation medical scholarship. Not named for my parents, but reclaiming my birth name for something better. 20 students without family support will receive full tuition and mentorship next fall. Back home, I kneel in our garden again, digging small holes for new seedlings. Leo helps, his small hands patting soil around tender roots. Some plants don't grow well next to others, I explain, showing him how to space the seedlings. They need their own space to thrive. Like people? He asks, surprisingly perceptive. Smart boy, I whisper, kissing his forehead. Yes, like people. The sun slants golden across our yard. Through the kitchen window, I see Michael preparing dinner, moving easily through the space we've created together. I press another seed into the dark earth, covering it gently. Some roots you're given, others you get to choose. I sit at my parents' kitchen table, the same maple surface where I did homework for 15 years, and notice how the finish has worn away in the spots where our plates always sat. Mom busies herself at the stove, periodically glancing at Dad, who's pouring wine with unusual generosity. More mashed potatoes, April? Mom asks, her voice pitched unnaturally high. I'm good. I watch as she heaps a second serving onto Troy's plate without waiting for his answer. My brother barely notices, thumbs tapping furiously on his phone screen. His wife Jessica fusses over their 8-year-old Mason, cutting his meat into precisely equal squares. Isn't it nice? All of us together on a Tuesday? Mom continues, smoothing her apron. So rare these days with everyone's schedules. I nod, taking a sip of wine to hide my frown. A Tuesday night family dinner with no occasion. The good china. Dad's retirement watch gleaming on his wrist. Mom's pearl earrings that only emerge for church and graduations. Something's wrong. Troy and Dad exchange a look. Mom drops her fork with a clatter. April. Mom clears her throat. We need to discuss something important about Mason's future. The air shifts. I set down my glass. Dad slides an official-looking document across the table toward me. Bank letterhead. Loan paperwork. My stomach tightens as I scan the top page. $40,000 college fund co-signing agreement. It's just a formality, Troy says, setting his phone down for the first time tonight. His rehearsed tone makes my skin prickle. The bank needs a second signature with solid credit, someone responsible. The compliment lands hollow. I flip to the second page, where my name is already typed in the co-signer field. You finally have that bonus money, Mom says, reaching for my hand. Her eyes well with practiced tears. Family helps family. The realization blooms cold in my chest. This dinner wasn't spontaneous. The invitation, the fancy settings, the unusual Tuesday, gathering a calculated ambush. They've been planning this for weeks. I look at my nephew Mason, innocently pushing peas into patterns, unaware he's the emotional pawn in tonight's game. The kitchen dissolves around me, replaced by the fluorescent lights of Palmer's Pharmacy 12 years ago. 16-year-old me counting pills into bottles after school while other kids went to football games. My textbooks spread on the break room table during my 30-minute dinner, studying for AP exams that might earn me scholarships. My parents never came to my science competitions, but Troy's football games? They had custom sweatshirts made. The day my full-ride acceptance letter arrived, Mom had glanced up from preparing Troy's favorite dinner. That's nice, dear. Could you set the table? 2 months later, they threw Troy a college send-off party with 50 guests. I celebrated my scholarship alone with a single cupcake bought from the bakery where I'd picked up summer shifts. The interest rate is reasonable, Dad says now, tapping the paper with his index finger, pulling me back to the present. And Mason's future depends on this foundation. My throat tightens. I need time to think about this. Troy's jaw clenches. The bank appointment is already scheduled for Thursday. Thursday? My voice rises. That's 2 days from now. After everything we've done for you, Mom interjects, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. I nearly laugh. What exactly had they done? I paid my way through college with scholarships and part-time jobs, $60,000 in student loans that I finally paid off last month. No co-signers on those papers. Dad leans forward, his voice dropping to that commanding tone he used when I stayed out past curfew. This is what family does, April. Excuse me, I mutter, pushing back from the table. Bathroom. I lock the door behind me, grip the cool edge of the sink, and splash water on my face. In the mirror, my grandmother's eyes stare back at me. Gran, who raised 3 kids alone after Grandpa died. Who taught me to stand tall when it felt easier to shrink. Your life belongs to you first. She used to whisper when I'd cry about Troy getting the bigger bedroom, the newer bike, the louder praise. My hands tremble as I dry my face. They expect me to walk back in there and sign away my financial future for a nephew whose college fund should have been started by his parents years ago. For a brother who's never once helped me. For parents who see me as the reliable backup plan. I straighten my shoulders, my grandmother's strength flowing into my spine. Thursday's bank appointment is already in their calendar. But my answer doesn't have to be the one they've scheduled. Have you ever been ambushed by family expecting your financial support? That moment when you realize the casual dinner invitation was actually a carefully orchestrated trap? Share your experience in the comments below. The next morning, the morning sun slants through my apartment blinds as I stare at my laptop screen, coffee forgotten beside me. My fingers hover over the keyboard, frozen by what I'm seeing. Account access, 6:42 p.m. Tuesday. The company benefits portal logs every login. Yesterday, hours before the casual family dinner, someone viewed my bonus details from an IP address I don't recognize. I pick up my phone, scrolling to a contact I rarely use. 3 rings. Accounting department, Sylvia speaking. Hi, Sylvia. It's April Donovan. Quick question, does Kathy Moore's daughter still work in IT? A pause. Lisa? Yes, but what's this about? The pieces click together like a puzzle I never wanted to solve. Lisa Moore, my mother's best friend's daughter, the woman who sends Mom birthday cards every year. Who works in IT security. Just checking. Thanks. I hang up before she can ask more questions. My bank statement shows it clearly. $15,200 deposited last Friday. The exact amount Mom mentioned at dinner, down to the dollar. They knew precisely what I had. My phone buzzes. Troy again, his 5th call since I walked out last night. I let it ring through to voicemail, then open my text messages. I scroll back weeks, finding the group chat I muted long ago. Troy. She just got her bonus. Mom confirmed amount. Dinner strategy still on for Tuesday? Dad. Confirmed. Your mother's making her favorite meal. Troy. Perfect. She won't see it coming. My stomach twists as if someone punched me. I slam the laptop closed and cross to my closet, dragging out the old cardboard box I've moved with me to every apartment since college. Inside, beneath yearbooks and school certificates, I find my childhood diary with the broken lock. May 15. Mom and Dad bought Troy a car for graduation. They gave me a card with $50. The 3rd of September, missed my science competition because Troy had a scrimmage. Dad said, there'll be other competitions. The 25th of December, Troy got the new computer. I got clothes for school. Page after page of documented favoritism, written in increasingly smaller handwriting, as if I was trying to make my complaints take up less space just like I always did at home. At the bottom of the box lies a folder of loan documents. My name alone on every page. No co-signers, no parental support. My phone rings again. Troy. What? I snap, answering against my better judgment. You need to stop being difficult, he says, skipping hello. Mom's been crying all morning. I'm not signing those papers. Family helps family, April. What would Gran say if she saw you being so selfish? The mention of my grandmother makes my blood boil. Don't you dare use Gran against me. She taught me to stand on my own feet, something you never learned. Look, Mason needs this. It's his future. Why can't you or Mom and Dad co-sign? Why me? His pause tells me everything. Because your credit score is better, he finally admits. Dad's retirement affected their score, and Jessica and I have the house mortgage. So I'm the backup plan. You're being dramatic. Dad says you're embarrassing the family. People at church are asking questions. My doorbell rings. I peer through the peephole to see Jessica standing there, perfectly styled as always. I have to go, I mutter, hanging up. Before I can decide whether to open the door, my phone chimes with a work email. From Janice in HR, "Is everything all right? I received a concerning call from a relative of yours about your difficult time." I nearly dropped the phone. They're calling my workplace now? The doorbell rings again, more insistent. However, I don't answer, and prepare for work, as I had a meeting later that morning. At work later, Margaret from the research lab drops into the chair beside my desk. At 62, she's seen it all, her salt and pepper curls framing a face that doesn't suffer fools. "You look like you haven't slept," she says, pushing a coffee toward me. "Family troubles?" I hesitate. "How did you know?" "Your brother called the front desk asking about you. Something about a family emergency." She leans closer. "I told reception you were in a meeting all day." "Thanks," I whisper, relief washing over me. "It's complicated." "Family usually is." Margaret's eyes narrow. "My sister tried the same thing when our father died. Wanted me to mortgage my house to save hers." She points a finger at me. "People who use family as a weapon don't deserve your sacrifice." My phone buzzes with a text from my best friend Rachel. "Just checking in. Want to grab dinner tonight?" Before I can respond, Troy's name flashes on my screen. "April, we need to talk. I already spent some of the college fund money on." I decline the call, my heart pounding. He's already spent the money? Money that doesn't exist yet? My desk phone rings. A local number I don't recognize. "Hello, April? This is Mark Jenkins from First Federal. I'm calling about the family account your father mentioned." I hang up, my hands shaking. That evening, my mother's number appears on my phone. For the first time in my adult life, I decline a family dinner invitation. "I can't make it tonight," I say firmly. "Or Thursday." "April Catherine Donovan," her voice breaks. "You're breaking your father's heart." I end the call and notice something strange. My hands have stopped trembling. The next morning, Troy appears in the lobby of my building, voice echoing through the atrium. "I need to see my sister. It's a family emergency." My coworkers watch as I meet him at the security desk. "You need to leave," I tell him, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Not until you agree to sign those papers," he hisses. No. The word feels foreign but powerful on my tongue. The answer is no. As security escorts him out, I feel the weight of stares and whispers, but straighten my shoulders and walk back to my desk. On Sunday that week, the church bulletin board looms before me, displaying family announcements in cheerful script. I've barely stepped through the heavy wooden doors when Uncle Roger materializes at my elbow. "There's my favorite niece," he says, his hand clamping my shoulder. "Your mother tells me you're having some trouble understanding family obligations." Before I can respond, Aunt Cheryl appears on my other side. "Mason is such a bright boy. Shame if his potential went to waste because of pride." Their coordinated attack continues through coffee hour, relatives appearing with rehearsed arguments whenever I try to escape. Pastor Williams even corners me beside the hymnal shelf. "The good book tells us family comes first, April. Your parents have prayed about this matter extensively. So..." My stomach knots. Prayers about my bank account. How convenient. Monday morning brings a crisp white envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, a single line typed in bold, "Ungrateful daughters burn in hell." The paper trembles in my hand. Troy calls that evening, his voice thick with practiced tears. Mason asked why Aunt April doesn't love him enough to help with college. My 8-year-old nephew, suddenly concerned about higher education financing. At Hannaford's, on Tuesday, Mrs. Peterson, who's known me since kindergarten, studies the contents of my shopping cart and sniffs. "Some people remember where they came from," she mutters, loud enough for other shoppers to hear. The final straw comes Wednesday, when Dad appears at my workplace reception desk, his retirement watch gleaming under fluorescent lights. "Need to speak with my daughter," he tells the receptionist with the authoritative tone that once sent me scurrying to my room. "Family emergency." I meet him in the lobby, arms crossed. This is inappropriate. What's inappropriate is abandoning your family when they need you. His voice carries to my colleagues passing through security. Thursday, 10 o'clock. The loan officer is expecting us. That night, I stare at my tiny apartment ceiling, calculating how many hours remain until I'm expected to sign away my financial future. My company email pings at 9:17 p.m. Biomedical research position, San Francisco branch expansion. Qualified internal candidates encouraged to apply immediately. I blink at the screen. The job description matches my skills perfectly. 3 minutes later, Margaret from HR texts, "Did you see the posting? Application deadline Friday. Your experience with the Carlton project makes you perfect." For the first time in days, I breathe deeply. 3,000 miles of geographical insulation. The possibility unfurls like a map showing an escape route. I apply at midnight, fingers flying across my keyboard. Thursday arrives with my anxiety, yet I do not meet my father in the morning and do not sign anything. However, the evening arrives with another ambush. This one, at my parents' house where I've been summoned to talk things through reasonably. I freeze in the doorway, counting heads. Troy and Jessica, Mom and Dad, Pastor Williams, Uncle Roger and Aunt Cheryl, 2 church elders, and my cousin Stephanie who works at the bank. "An intervention," Troy announces, chest puffed with righteousness, "because we're worried about your spiritual welfare." For 20 minutes, I sit silently as Troy delivers what sounds like a practice sermon on Christian duty and family obligation. Mother dabs at her eyes with a handkerchief I recognize from her community theater performances. "After all we sacrificed for you," she whispers, voice breaking perfectly on cue. The room hums with murmurs of agreement. "Your grandmother would be so disappointed," Aunt Cheryl adds, though she barely knew Gran. Something snaps inside me. My grandmother taught me to stand on my own feet. "You always were difficult," Dad sighs. Difficult? The word escapes like steam from a pressure cooker. I worked every summer since 15. I earned my scholarship. I paid my student loans without a cosigner or family help. I sacrificed too. Troy lunges forward. "This isn't about you." "It never is." I stand, surprised by my steady hands. And that's the problem. Later that night, after quarreling and they have left, Rachel helps me pack essentials into unmarked boxes stored in her garage. They really thought a prayer circle would convince you to sign a loan? They thought God would back up their financial plan. I wrap my grandmother's china teacup in bubble wrap. The San Francisco HR department called. They want a virtual interview tomorrow. On Friday morning, I accepted the California position with a significant raise. Margaret rearranged my work schedule without questions. "Family emergency," she tells my supervisor with a conspiratorial wink. I also checked my one-way ticket scheduled for Wednesday next week. My elderly neighbor, Mr. Wilson, agrees to collect my mail. "Had to escape my own brother's schemes back in 2082, he confides. Sometimes distance is the only language they understand. Each action builds momentum. On Monday morning, bank accounts transfer to West Coast branches. Mail forwarding gets established. That same day, I made my final student loan payment. I celebrated alone with sparkling cider in a plastic cup. The symmetry feels right, beginning and ending my financial independence journey in solitude. On Tuesday, while cleaning out my desk drawer, I found Gran's letter from my college graduation day. The yellowed paper unfolds to reveal her careful handwriting. "Your life belongs to you first, April. Choose wisely who gets pieces of it. Love doesn't demand bankruptcy of spirit or wallet." That night, I cry for the first time since this began. Not from fear or guilt, but from recognition. In the morning mirror, I see Gran's determined eyes staring back at me. My goodbye letter takes 3 drafts. Not apologizing proves hardest. I place it in an envelope addressed to my parents, leaving it on my kitchen counter next to a check for $500 toward Mason's future. A gift, not an obligation. The California lease agreement arrives by email. My signature flows easily across the electronic document. The weight on my chest lightens with each letter. My phone buzzes with Troy's text. "Dad's getting the papers notarized. Be at the bank Thursday at 10 a.m. I don't respond, just check my flight itinerary one final time. Wednesday departure, one-way ticket. And that's how I just left that Wednesday night. The rideshare driver helped load my 2 suitcases at the airport after I arrived to San Francisco. "Big trip?" "The biggest," I respond, ready to accept my new life away from my family. As the car merges onto the highway away from the airport, I watch the city's skyline through the window. With each step closer to my new life, my smile grows wider, stretching toward a California horizon where no one waits with papers for me to sign. California sunshine streams through unfamiliar curtains as I stretch on the bed of my hotel where I am staying until the end of this week. I am moving to my new apartment on Sunday. My phone remains deliberately off, sitting on the nightstand like a dormant bomb. Right now, my family is assembling at First Boston National Bank, checking watches and growing increasingly irritated by my absence. My meticulous planning led to this moment. I think back to the family Sunday dinners I attended, with practiced smiles. The careful way I responded to Troy's persistent questions about the loan, with vague phrases like, "I'm still looking into it," and, "The timing isn't ideal right now." I remember how my family forced me, especially my father. "The appointment's confirmed for Thursday at 10. You'll be there." Not a question, a command. I nodded non-committally while loading the dishwasher, buying precious time as my escape plan solidified. Last night, while they slept in their comfortable suburban homes, I boarded Flight 1422 to San Francisco. As the plane lifted through Massachusetts clouds, I felt the weight of 30 years of obligation fall away. My chest expanded with each mile west. I slide open the hotel room curtains wider, allowing myself to fully absorb the Pacific light. 3,000 miles now separate me from the bank where Troy paces the lobby, checking his watch every 30 seconds. My phone buzzes to life when I finally power it on. The barrage is immediate. 17 missed calls, 32 text messages. Mom's voicemail plays first, her voice trembling. "April, where are you? Everyone's waiting. Please call immediately." Dad's message is clipped, authoritative. "This is unacceptable behavior. Call now." By the fifth voicemail, Troy's tone has transformed from irritation to panic. "If you're doing what I think you're doing, there will be consequences. Legal consequences." I scroll through the texts as I sip room service coffee. The latest from Mom sends an unexpected chill. "We've contacted the police. You're officially a missing person." My fingers hover over the keyboard before tapping out a response to my old supervisor at work. "They've escalated to missing persons. Just as we anticipated." The reply comes quickly. "HR blocked their information requests this morning. Your employment status is confidential. Relax and enjoy California." I open my laptop and navigate to the email draft I prepared weeks ago. One deep breath, then I hit send. The comprehensive account of Troy's manipulation, my parents' enabling, and the systematic financial pressure now reaches our extended family. Included are screenshots of Troy's texts planning the dinner strategy and Mom's access to my company benefits portal. My phone rings, Boston Police Department. The officer's voice is professionally neutral. "Miss Donovan, we're following up on a missing persons report filed by your parents." "I'm not missing," I reply, my voice steadier than it's been in months. "I moved for work, voluntarily." "That's what we figured," he says, the hint of a smile in his voice. "We'll inform your family you're safe." A notification appears, a private message from Jessica, Troy's wife. "I understand why you left. He does this to everyone. Be safe." Throughout the afternoon, my support network activates like a well-rehearsed orchestra. Rachel confirms to my frantic mother that I'm safe and well but need space. Margaret sends a brief text. "Office gossip shut down. Your replacement story is holding. Enjoy the Sunday, mister." Wilson, my elderly neighbor, reports that my parents appeared at my old apartment demanding access. Told them you'd moved on. Legally, properly, they left disappointed. My new California supervisor sends a welcome email introducing me to the team, no questions asked about my sudden arrival date change. Tonight, they've arranged a casual dinner. As evening approaches, the family facade begins showing its first cracks. Mom's church friend Betsy messages, "Your mother's telling everyone you had a breakdown. Several of us suggested she respect your privacy. I always told her you deserved better." Uncle Frank, Dad's older brother, emails, "Got your explanation. Not surprised. Troy's had his hand out for years. Bank called me about his previous loan applications after your no-show. Things unraveling here." I step onto the hotel balcony, watching the sun sink toward the Pacific. For the first time in months, genuine laughter bubbles from my chest, unexpected, liberating. 3,000 miles of distance has accomplished what years of conversations could not. Freedom tastes like California air, crisp and full of possibility. The welcome dinner notification pings on my calendar. New colleagues, new beginning, no history. I dress carefully, appreciating how my shoulders have already relaxed away from my ears. As I prepare to leave, one final text appears, from Mason, Troy's 8-year-old son, obviously using Jessica's phone. Aunt April, when can I visit California? I smile, typing back, someday soon, buddy, someday soon. 3 months later, I am dealing with projects, meetings, new clients, without anyone forcing me to do anything I don't want. However, one Tuesday afternoon, the certified letter arrives at work. Official stamp, my father's precise handwriting. Inside, a single page. Your mother collapsed yesterday. Doctors aren't sure why. We need you home. My hands tremble, but my mind stays clear. 3 months of California sunshine hasn't erased 28 years of manipulation. I dial the hospital directly. No patient under my mother's name. Looking for creative ways to make you answer. Margaret comments during our lunch break on a video call. She recognizes family manipulation tactics better than most therapists. What's the count now? 5 and 3 days, I say, scrolling through my phone. Mother's tearful video message yesterday. Troy uses his son for a video call for manipulation. Pastor calling about spiritual healing. And now this letter. Margaret butters her roll with methodical precision. They're escalating because you're winning. On Saturday morning, as I was working from my apartment, an email notification pings. Legal notice about family trust obligations from a law firm I've never heard of. A quick search reveals no such firm exists in Massachusetts. My phone vibrates with Troy's name. Against better judgment, I answer. Mason wants to say goodbye before. Troy's voice breaks perfectly on cue. Before what, Troy? Before he stops asking about you. Kid doesn't understand why his aunt abandoned him. The old guilt rises, but something new rises faster. Anger, clean and clarifying. Put Mason on if he's actually there, I say. A pause. He's at school. It's Saturday. The call ends abruptly. 3 more messages arrive before evening. Mother's health declining from stress of abandonment. Parents selling grandmother's china cabinet promised to me since childhood. A former neighbor calling my supervisor about my concerning behavior back east. I sit in my apartment, windows open to the coastal breeze, and make my decision. Monday morning, I send one email. Family video call. Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. All of you together. Their responses flood in immediately. Mother's tearful acceptance, father's stern agreement, Troy's smug certainty. The apartment fills with sunset light Thursday evening as I arrange my laptop precisely. Behind me, no family photos, only my degrees and certification awards. I've prepared for this moment like a surgeon for a complicated operation. At exactly 7 o'clock, I click Join Meeting. Their faces appear in boxes across my screen. Father at the head of their kitchen table, mother dabbing tissues beside him, Troy and Jessica with Mason visible in the background, Pastor Wilson in the corner. 3 sets of aunts and uncles I barely recognize. April, father begins, authority coating his voice. We've gathered as a family to discuss your concerning behavior and... I'll be speaking first, I interrupt, my voice steadier than it's ever been addressing him. I have prepared remarks and evidence that requires your full attention. Mother starts to protest, but father raises his hand to silence her, curiosity briefly overriding his need for control. 3 months ago, you ambushed me with demands to co-sign a $40,000 loan for Mason's college fund. I begin, screen sharing a meticulously organized timeline. Since then, you've escalated to increasingly desperate tactics, which I've documented fully. Troy shifts forward. This is ridiculous. We're trying to secure our son's future, and you're treating us like criminals. You told First National Bank the money was for Mason's education, I reply, clicking to the next slide. But I have you on record telling your poker buddy it would cover your gambling debts. The recording plays, Troy's unmistakable voice. April's bonus is exactly what I need to clear the tables. Once she signs, I'll worry about Mason's college later. Silence falls like a physical weight. Jessica's head snaps toward Troy. I continue methodically through my evidence. Bank statements proving my parents have sufficient assets to guarantee the loan themselves. My student loan history versus Troy's fully funded education. Childhood diary entries documenting systematic favoritism. But perhaps most compelling, I say, clicking forward, is this analysis showing that this pattern has repeated throughout our lives. Troy receives. I provide. From bedrooms to birthdays to college tuition. Father's face has turned to stone. Mother's tears have stopped, replaced by something harder. You're twisting everything, Troy shouts, slamming his hand on their table. This is what families do. They help each other. Like you helped me with my student loans? I ask. Like you helped when I needed a co-signer for my first apartment? The assistance has only ever flowed one direction. Aunt Meredith speaks up from her square. Robert, is this true? That April paid her own way through college while you covered Troy's expenses? Father can't meet her eyes. My financial decisions are not family property, I state, looking directly into the camera. I'm willing to establish a relationship moving forward, but only under new terms. The kitchen behind them is so quiet I can hear the wall clock ticking. No contact for 6 months. I continue. After that, we can reassess based on everyone's behavior. Any attempt to manipulate me or contact my workplace will reset the clock. Father opens his mouth, closes it. For the first time in my life, I've rendered him speechless. In his eyes, behind the anger, flickers something unexpected. Respect. Troy stands abruptly. This is bulls. The rest of his sentence cuts off as he storms away from the camera. Mother leans forward, her hand reaching toward the screen like she could touch me across 3,000 miles. April, She pauses, swallows. I'm sorry. I didn't see what we were doing. It's the first genuine apology I've heard from her since childhood. 6 months. I repeat, my finger hovering over the disconnect button. Your move. I end the call on my terms, not theirs. The silence in my apartment feels different now, like the quiet after a storm passes, like freedom. I stretch my arms toward the ceiling of my California apartment, sunlight streaming through windows that actually face the morning sky. 6 months in this space with an actual living room, and I still smile every time I pad across the hardwood floors in my bare feet. My phone buzzes with another congratulatory message about yesterday's promotion. The entire research team gathered with genuine champagne, not the grocery store, sparkling wine my parents served when Troy got his first job after college. Breakfast on the balcony? Ellie texts, my downstairs neighbor turned friend who accepts my occasional need for quiet weekends without question. My new circle here understands boundaries aren't walls, they're healthy perimeters that make relationships possible. I glance at my calendar, where next month's vacation to Sedona glows in bold letters. My bonus money, spent on desert sunrises instead of someone else's obligation. The peaceful ritual of morning coffee, without dreading the family ringtone, follows me onto the balcony. At work, Caitlin, a new lab assistant, hovers near my desk, clutching her phone. Everything okay? I ask. Her eyes glisten. My brother needs co-signers for his business loan. My parents are pressuring me, but I just started paying off my student loans. 6 months ago, I'd have mumbled awkward sympathy. Today, I pull up a chair. Your success belongs to you, I tell her, my voice steady. You're not wrong for protecting it. The words flow without bitterness. Later, declining a request from a colleague feels simple. My no emerges without the guilt that once twisted my stomach into knots. Back home, Gran's letter hangs framed beside my degrees. Your life belongs to you first. No longer hidden in a drawer but displayed proudly, like the woman I've become. Twice monthly therapy sessions have helped me understand the patterns carved into my childhood. The golden child dynamic isn't your creation or your responsibility, my therapist reminded me last week. The realization landed differently than before, settled rather than stinging. Weekends now include volunteer work at a women's financial literacy program. Last Sunday, I met Eric there, a curriculum developer whose gentle questions never probe beyond my offered boundaries. His hand in mine feels like invitation, not demand. Cousins from my mother's side reached out after my departure, distant family bridges rebuilt on mutual respect rather than obligation. Last night, I realized I hadn't thought about the loan in weeks. The space it once occupied now filled with actual living. Mother's letters arrive monthly now, hesitant at first, then increasingly sincere. I never considered how differently we treated you and Troy, she wrote recently. Dad's stubborn silence has softened to brief text messages about weather and baseball scores. Small steps across a wide gulf. From Rachel, news that Troy faces foreclosure without my financial safety net. Jessica brought Mason to visit last month without telling Troy her quiet rebellion against years of enabling his demands. Thanksgiving approaches, and my dining table will host the family I've chosen, Ellie, co-workers, neighbors who've become friends. Margaret visits next week during her retirement celebration trip. Rachel flies in Thursday, already planning her toast to the woman who chose herself. Mr. Wilson's congratulatory letter sits on my desk, his careful penmanship reminding me that courage looks different at every age. Yesterday marked my freedom anniversary with a small cupcake, a tradition I'll continue yearly. This morning, I opened a savings account specifically for Mason's education, my terms, my choice. The note I'll give him on his 16th birthday already drafted. Your future is yours to build, but support should come freely. Bye. I close my laptop on today's completed project, carrying my tea to the balcony. The Pacific stretches before me, vast and glittering. Standing with arms outstretched, face warmed by sunset, I finally understand freedom isn't the absence of family but the presence of choice. Have you ever had to set firm boundaries with family? How did they respond when they realized you wouldn't back down?